Okay, in this video, I'd like to talk about the three most important equations in science that today's science may or may not know about, and they may or may not be telling you about. So let's get into it. Okay, to understand the whole deal with fields, and that everything's a field, not a particle, is to understand something as simple as this concept here, that the Earth is a giant magnet, because the Earth is spinning through space with its molten iron core, producing its magnetic fields. It's no different than this magnet right here. All the magnetism is on the outside periphery of the magnet. On the inside of the magnet, at the dead center, at the 0 point, or counter space, or dielectricity, the dielectric, there is no gravity. There's 0 g, or 0 Gauss. It's the same thing at the center of the Earth. There's 0 g, or 0 Gauss. This is what I'm talking about. My magnetic levitation pencil represents this pretty clearly. It's a balance point, and it's all about equaling out the two, the dielectricity and the magnetism. So this is what Oliver Heaviside discovered in the early 1900s when he solved the problem for the undersea cable, the transatlantic cable that was laid across from the United States to Europe. This was in order to feed the telegraph system. When they first laid the cable, they couldn't get it to work. The signal wasn't right, and it was so slow at the other end that they couldn't even use it. So Oliver Heaviside was the genius that figured out that you have to balance the magnetism and the dielectricity in order to get the proper flow of the signal from one end to the other. So this is where we get into this whole thing here with space and counter space. You only have two dimensions with a plane of inertia in between. Everything's triplicate, not duality. You have space, which is visible light, magnetism. This is everything you see in matter. Then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have counter space. Dielectricity, or the ether, as the other words are 0 point. This is what you would call that. This is where everything's emulating from. So in space, you have frequency, like AC. There's an on and off. It's like a binary. In counter space, you have the complete opposite. You have no frequency. This is scalar, or ether, or dielectricity, whatever you want to call it. Space is, like I said, visible light. This is Fibonacci, 1.618. This is the spiral spinning towards the right, manifesting matter. This is where you have light, white hole. You got light speed here. It's a push, and you have time because you count things here in matter. On the complete other end of the spectrum, you have counter space. It's 0.618. It's spiraling to the left, or counterclockwise, just like counter space. It's dark, it's a black hole, it goes faster than light because it's the torsion field. It's another name for it. There's no time, and it's a pole like a vacuum with a plane of inertia in between. This is how everything's working in triplicate, 369, just like Tesla said. So in order to have electricity, you must have magnetism and dielectricity in a geometric form. So in order to solve this problem, what Heaviside did was that he took iron wire or magnetic tape in the cable, and he wrapped it around the cable to raise the magnetism, because he figured out that when the energy was sent that the magnetic, the wire eats it up faster than the insulator eats it up. So when the magnetic wave is propagating down the line, it's getting eaten up faster than the dielectric that's propagating down the line. So he equaled them out, and then all the signals flowed properly in the telegraph, and you could type on the telegraph really fast. And all the mathematicians and, like I said, the physicists in Europe at the time were really mad that his stuff worked, and his work was suppressed after this. So like I said, he figured out that the magnetism was being weakened, and when he added that magnetic tape, he equaled out the signal. So after this, he came up with most of the words and terms that are used today. And according to Eric Dollard, he says that Maxwell's equations are really heavy sides. So he took down all Maxwell's equations and broke basically 20 pages of Maxwellian equations into a one-line expression. And after this, electrical engineering was made possible because they couldn't even engineer anything down the transmission line without it catching fire, blowing up. So that's how important that this equation is, the Heaviside telegraph equation. So what it is a wave equation, and it represents the magnetic and the dielectric, the two conjugate fields that are running constantly, and they go from one end of the universe to the other. So this is a universal deal. This is what everybody in science is missing, and this is what all the ETs know and are using. So here's the Heaviside telegraph equation. And what it is, it's a secondary differential equation. And Heaviside, okay, he states here that the magnetic wave would be represented by the LC, and the dielectric would be represented by the RG. So you have LC plus RG, and with the square root of 1, okay? And then you have the, on the other side, this would be the counter space. So you have the dielectric, like I said, RC plus the LG, the magnetic or space. And then this is represented by the square root of -1. So that's how they figured this whole thing out. Like I said, Dollard calls this the archetypical expression for all electromagnetic activity that you see. So this is how everything's working. And this is the third most important equation here. F equals 1 over T, meaning frequency equals 1 over time. Because once again, in space, in matter, you're counting things. Everything's cycling. So everything's being counted. In counter space, there's no time. So this equation here was given to George Van Tassel at Giant Rock, California. He had an airport there, and somebody got off a craft and gave him this equation here. And this is what he was using in order to build the Integratron in the desert. So F equals 1 over T. It's just talking about how everything in space is being counted or cycled. So these are the three most important equations. The equation for electricity, the Heaviside telegraph equation, and F equals 1 over T, the equation that was given to George Van Tassel from a supposed traveler from somewhere else. They gave him that equation. So this is how everything's working, and it's proven fact at this point. So thanks for watching. If you haven't seen my other videos, please check them out.